kissed the window pane, tiny paws felt the wooden floor of the house for the first time. Even when Nova was just a few months old, her big brown eyes seemed to hold the light of 1,000 stories lived. When her family held her in their arms, a great burst of love filled her tiny heart. This house was now her home, these people were now her family. 10 years. Short for a human life, but a lifetime for a dog's heart. Every breath Nova took, every wag of her tail, overflowed with love that permeated the walls of the house. The nights she slept on the children's laps, the moments she curled up at her mother's feet when she was alone, the minutes she greeted her father when he came home tired. Each one was a treasure engraved on Nova's soul. Old age was creeping up quietly, though her silvering fur reminded her of the passage of time every morning in the mirror. Her loving heart had never aged. Until that day came. Nova was the first to sense the tiny movement in Mother's belly. That mysterious canine instinct whispered to her of the miracle approaching. She would sit for hours watching that little life dance, gently placing her paw on the belly as if to say, "Hello, I'm here." And then Nolan arrived. That first moment, Nova's world suddenly burst into color. Standing before that warm body filled with tiny fingers, soft breaths, and the scent of a newborn, something deep within her heart snapped. This wasn't just a new family member. This was a sibling she had to protect, love, and dedicate her life to. "No matter what happens, I will protect you from harm." When these words came from Nova's soul, it was as if the whole universe had heard them. Now she had a mission: to protect Nolan. The shadow waiting beside the crib in the darkness of night was Nova. The one who woke up at the first light of dawn to check on Nolan was her. The first to rush when the baby cried, the guardian analyzing every sound from outside, the hero warding off dangers with her soft paws. It was always her. When Nolan's first smile appeared, the joy overflowing from Nova's heart enveloped everyone in the house. That smile seemed to say to Nova, "I see you, I love you." The first time he said, "Novi," time stood still. Everyone's eyes filled with tears because that little baby, when he said his name, was actually saying, "My hero, my closest friend." Years passed. When Nolan learned to walk, Nova ran beside him. When he learned to talk, she chatted with him. When he learned to read, she listened to his stories. With every new discovery, every scary moment, every joyful scream, Nova was there. When dangerous dogs approached while playing in the park, Nova's demeanor changed. Gentle Nova suddenly transformed into heroic Nova, stepping in front of Nolan and declaring with determination in her eyes, "You can't touch this child." But when Nolan laughed, those stern looks instantly melted into affection. When evening came and Nolan was exhausted, Nova would rest her head on his little leg. Those moments were the most sacred, because Nova had kept her promise. Nolan was safe, happy, loved. Now Nova was old, but her heart was still as young as it had been on that first day. As Nolan grew a little more each day, Nova fell more in love with him every morning. This was not just ownership or friendship. It was the unconditional bond between two beings connected in spirit. One night as Nolan slept, Nova looked at him. Her old eyes held both sadness and contentment. "I kept my word, my little friend," she thought to herself. "You are a strong boy now. Whenever you remember me, know that every moment I spent with you was the most beautiful gift of my life." Nova and Nolan's story was love in its purest form. Unconditional, unreserved, infinite love. Time could separate them, but this bond would live on in their hearts forever. Because true friendship transcends life and dances eternally in the soul. As snowflakes hit the windows, Tommy watched the unusual activity in the house with curiosity. For 7 years he had known every corner of this house, the meaning of every sound. But today everything was different. His mother had been excited since morning and his father was constantly on the phone. There was a sense of urgency somewhere, a feeling of waiting. Tommy's big brown eyes stared blankly at the suitcases, the hospital bag, the small room being prepared. It seemed someone else would be living in this house now. But who? When the door opened, Tommy ran, as he always did, to show his affection. But this time his mother and father were holding a very small, very delicate package in their hands. The package was breathing. The package was crying. "Tommy, come meet her. said his mother softly. "This is Isla." Tommy brought his nose closer. This tiny thing was human but much smaller than himself. He smelled completely different, like milk powder and innocence. His instincts suddenly whispered an important truth to him. "This is now your responsibility." That night, Tommy didn't leave the crib. Every time Isla cried, his ears pricked up. Every time she breathed, his eyes opened. He knew from years of experience, some beings need protection. And now this little human was under his protection. As the months passed, a language developed between them that words could not describe. Even before Isla could speak, her eyes would light up when she saw Tommy, and she would try to touch him with her tiny hands. Tommy, meanwhile, was constantly alert, trying to understand her every little need. Isla's first crawl happened under Tommy's guidance. The dog would lie down in front of the baby, extending his paw as if to say, "Come here, it's safe." If Isla fell, Tommy was right there. If Isla smiled, Tommy's tail would wag with excitement. When she learned to take her first steps, Isla would try to walk by clinging to whatever she could hold on to. Her favorite place to hold on was Tommy's back. When the dog felt her little hands on his back, he would freeze, waiting motionless for her to find her balance. To me, that was her first word. Mom and Dad knew this wasn't normal. Babies usually said mama or dada. But for Isla, the most important thing in the world was her big furry friend who was always by her side. When Tommy heard that word, his tail wagged so fast he almost fell over. He ran to Isla and licked her face in a show of joy. From that moment on, he responded with the same enthusiasm every time he heard his name. As Isla grew older, their games became more complex. When they played hide and seek, Tommy always found where Isla was hiding, but instead of betraying her, he would sit next to her and wait quietly for the game to continue. When they played ball, Tommy wouldn't fetch the ball. He would drop it at Isla's feet to give it to her. Years passed. Tommy's fur began to turn gray, his steps grew heavier. But when Isla started school, he continued to walk her to the door every morning and wait for her return every evening. He couldn't run anymore, but his love had not diminished. Isla was now 7 years old. At dinner, she asked her mother, "Mom, Tommy will always be with me, won't he?" Her mother tried to explain that Tommy was getting old, that dogs live differently than humans. But seeing the worry in Isla's eyes, she chose a different approach. "Do you see how much Tommy loves you? That kind of love never disappears. He will always live in your heart." That night, as Isla lay down in her bed, Tommy lay down beside her as usual. The little girl put her hand on the dog's head. "Tommy," she said, "you will always be my best friend. You know that, right?" Tommy, as if he understood, brought his head closer to the girl's hand. His eyes were tired but full of love. He knew he had come into this world to protect this little human, and he had fulfilled his duty successfully. And that night, as the two friends slept side by side, there was warm love in the house. Time may pass, friendships may fade, but some bonds last forever. Because true friendship is not just a bridge between a dog and a child, it is a treasure hidden in the deepest part of the heart. When the morning sun filtered into the room, Isla opened her eyes and found Tommy, just as always, right beside her, protecting her. "Good morning, my best friend," she whispered. And Tommy's tail wagged once more, filled with love. On that winter day when snowflakes kissed the window pane, Tiny Paws felt the wooden floor of the house for the first time. Even when Nova was just a few months old, her big brown eyes seemed to hold the light of 1,000 stories lived. When her family held her in their arms, a great burst of love filled her tiny heart. This house was now her home, these people were now her family. 10 years. Short for a human life, but a lifetime for a dog's heart. Every breath Nova took, every wag of her tail, overflowed with love that permeated the walls of the house. The nights she slept on the children's laps, the moments she curled up at her mother's feet when she was alone, the minutes she greeted her father when he came home tired. Each one was a treasure engraved on Nova's soul. Old age was creeping up quietly. Though her silvering